We're coming to you live from Yenagoa in Bayelsa State, where the second anniversary of the administration is being celebrated today. And we have with us His Excellency Diri, Governor of Bayelsa State. Good morning, Your Excellency. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, I see in some of the theme here, you talk about 2 years of impact. Do you really think you've made that kind of impact that you desire?
Well, the judgment is for the people. But I think that in spite of the odds that we faced, occasioned by COVID-19 lockdowns and downturn of the economy, but the little that we have been able to give, depends, like I said, on the people's judgment. I think we have done a little.
How much of a challenge have you found it? I mean, given that, yes, you did contest, you campaigned, you came with several programs, so from what you've seen now, what would you say?
Well, maybe for funds, but I think that to a large extent, God has been faithful to us, and we have done something reasonable, I think we should be proud of it. So with all our campaign promises and with what we now met on ground, you know, that's one thing to promise, another thing, the reality on ground.
Yeah. What do you mean reality on ground? Because I mean, it's essentially the same party, so people will have the impression that, yeah, you have not just a bird's eye view, but a very good impression of what was on ground before you came out.
No, the reality on ground is, like I said, nobody knew that there was going to be a COVID-19. And that's a reality that now stares at you.
Yeah.
And so your economy is now down. Your allocation is down. Your IGR is down. And so you have to face the reality. That's what I mean.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity of speaking with you since you became governor of Bayelsa State in a very surprising turn of events here in this state. And I imagine that that upset was, you know, the impact of it must have been quite a lot on the state. And I know that you had to manage the situation somewhat. First, I know there's going to be a lot to cram 2 years into 1 hour, but let's see what we can do. Take us through where you first of all entered office and what you considered your immediate task at hand.
For me, the journey to Creekhaven, you know, the government house here is called Creekhaven, was a tortuous one. And I mean, the rest is history, how God finally, you know, delivered us to be here. And when we got here, again, we had so much, I mean, world over, lockdown. Yeah,
before we get to the lockdown, because February was when you were sworn in.
Yeah.
The lockdown happened in March. In the first 1 month, for instance, tell us what was going through your mind as the immediate thing that you needed to do to at least, because I know that there must have been an upheaval.
No upheavals. First,
there wasn't.
The immediate thing was that, look, I was going to continue with virtually all the projects and most of the good policies of the immediate past government. And what we have done is actually a continuation of most of the projects that were initiated by the previous government. We have completed some of them, not all, some of them, and also adding some new ones.
When I spoke about an upheaval, I was talking about the opposing side.
The opposing side, okay.
I know that you stretched out a hand of fellowship, you know, but how was that trying to, I know that you also put it amongst the things that you've done in terms of achieving peace and stability in the state.
I get you now. Yes. I get you now. If that's what you refer to. Now, what crossed my mind at that point was that there was too much of bitterness within the political system in the state. And there was too much of hatred. And in fact, on the day of my swearing in, I had to change my address to look at, you know, giving an olive branch to all not minding political parties and calling for peace, calling for unity so that we can forge ahead as a state. So if that's what you refer to, truly what crossed my mind at that time was to first unite the people and also to ensure that where there is hatred, we give love. Where there is darkness, we give light.
How has that worked? I mean, I know that you didn't have a lot of time to implement it before COVID-19 came. Or did COVID-19 help in any way? Because some people will say that it immediately let us see our common humanity first, before we are either PDP, APC, or any other thing, you know, Ijo, Robo, or any other ethnic group as it were.
That worked because my body language and everything I was doing was tailored towards peace. And like I said, I gave the olive branch to the point that I didn't know who was APC and who was PDP. I was prepared to work with all manner of people. I was prepared to work with every other political party, provided it was for the stability, peace, and security of our state.
And how was that received?
It was received so well. Take, for instance, a lot of people, let me give the example of my leader, the former president. The story out there was that the former president did not support me. But when I came in, I said we are very few, and for us to have the opportunity of a small state producing the president of Nigeria, whatever stories that are there, I must go to him. He was one of the first persons I went to after my swearing in. And I went there to say, no loser, no winner. Let us together for the development of our state. And several others that I went to personally, met with. I met with Chief Timipri Silva in Abuja and several other political leaders from the state. And I can assure you that those meetings produced results.
Were there murmurings within your own political party? I hope you didn't have people who were saying, Your Excellency, but we just won. This is our
Now that is the problem with our country.
Yeah.
Winner takes all.
Yeah.
That's the problem with our country. When you have been declared a winner, you are no longer the governor of your party alone. You are the governor of the people. You are the governor of the state. You are the president of the country. And the earlier we realize this in our political growth, that as a governor or as a president, you need to carry everybody along. And you need to sustain peace. Because if there is no peace, take for instance in our country now, particularly our brothers from the north, it's a problem that you can't travel from one state to the other. Even within the state, you cannot travel on land. So peace is something that we cannot wish away. And as leaders, the first thing we should do is reconciliation, reconciliation, and reconciliation. And as I came in, part of what informed what I did was that, in fact, the way God has brought me is that I need to reconcile Bayelsans.
You know, at that point, unfortunately, there was that killing in Nembe just before you came in. How did you approach that in order to ensure peace?
That's another story altogether. You know, before I came in, members of the PDP were chased out of Nembe. I just went to campaign there. That was even before the November elections, about some 2 or 3 days to the elections. And my campaigns, going there to campaign, led to those killings. And all of our supporters, the leadership of the PDP, were chased out of Nembe. And so what I did was that I said, look, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Now we're in power. Now the end thing in Nembe is that the day I'm sworn in as governor, I would have also empowered my group to go and chase out every other political party or those who perpetrated the killings. But again, here, I extended the olive branch again and allowed, first of all, my people to go into Nembe. I tried to reach out to the traditional ruler and other leaders in Nembe and trying to make the point that you cannot live in this kind of system where you chase out your own people. And they saw the point with me, and at the end of the day, after several meetings, they agreed. And those who hitherto were now Yenagwa Nembe citizens now went into Nembe, and they reconciled. And there was joy and happiness.
What about the families of those who...
Well, what I also did was that for those who are injured, those who have certificates and all that, I gave an automatic employment. And the families who lost one or two, some few deaths, I also gave employment to their children. And going forward, now that we have brought a relative peace to Nembe, like I promised during my meetings with them, those who perpetrated that act certainly will not go free.
Does that in any way indicate that experience, the challenges or the gaps in security, especially in the hinterlands?
Let's take that again. I didn't get that.
Does that experience you had in any way indicate or hint at the challenges of security or a lack of it in the hinterlands in the...
Well, security, particularly in our climate, in our own environment, which is mainly maritime. It's quite difficult for you to secure the maritime environment. It's more expensive and more demanding than the upland. And so the challenges I was already aware of. So even now, we are looking at how best to actually govern those ungoverned spaces in our maritime environment. I was aware of the challenges, so that incident alone didn't bring up anything different.
Okay, so one of the challenges that I usually try to wrap my head around is we need to understand where the problem is coming from, what informed it, and how do we ensure that once we solve it now, it doesn't raise its head again. Still talking about this, the insecurity challenge, for instance, because as you and several other leaders have said, without security, development is a little touchy. So what would you say is the cause or source of such insecurity, and how do we begin to address them?
I think that it has to do with our mindsets and the way we have evolved politically. Take, for instance, in my state, Bayelsa, people believe that politics is all about being a strong man. And being a strong man means that you have to wield some AK-47. You have to have a lot of militants behind you, and you terrorize and chase away your opponents, which was what we saw in Nembe. And then you are a strong man, and then you deny the people from determining who becomes their leader. Then you get into a room and thumbprint and results, cordon off the place, maybe in connivance with some government agencies, security agencies, and then you go to announce a result. And that mindset has to change. That politics is not about wielding of AK-47. Politics is not about having some youths behind you as militants to terrorize others who are in contest with you.
And people are not calling you a Jew man. Where is this our governor from? If that is the culture and that is the belief, it's going to be a real uphill task trying to turn it around.
Thank you. You are very correct. I've actually not had it very, very easy. But because of my background and because of what I believe in, I'm sure that a lot of people are beginning to appreciate what I do by preaching peace and by preaching what politics is and what politics is not.
But let me quickly, Your Excellency, as I did say, I mean, it's been how many years now since we were last here? But it was a real surprise, a very pleasant surprise to fly in directly.
You interviewed me in Abuja,
exactly.
Yeah,
In Abuja, after
some 4 years ago now.
That's a long time ago.
Quite a long time.
That's a whole administration. But it was a real joy flying into Yenagua. I mean, I think we're still thinking that we're contemplating how are we going to make this trip. Well, we have to land in Port Harcourt and drive 2 hours. And then, surprise, surprise, you know, we got information that we could actually fly in directly to Yenagua. That was a real pleasant surprise. How would you say that the completion and the fact that you were able to get the NCA to accredit the airport and get operations started, how would you say it has opened up Bayelsa to investment opportunities? Can you quantify that?
Certainly you can't quantify it for now because we are still in the teething stages of it. We went into agreement with the private airline, the United Nigeria Airline, and thank God they have been on, even though with a lot of challenges. And recently, Ibom Air is also coming in. So you can't quantify that. I remember a federal permanent secretary from Bayelsa, the day she landed in the airport, she said she was seeing her village and she couldn't hold back, and tears of joy.
Oh.
Tears of joy. So how do you quantify that? You know, that she landed in Yenagua and she drove straight to Government House to come and say thank you. So we give the glory to God and the immediate past governor, who this airport matter has been on the drawing board for years, from the beginning of the state, from DSP Alame Seya. In fact, at a point, Chief Timipri Silva, who succeeded, now moved the location of the airport to somewhere in the east-west route. And some people at that point, you know, during the rainy season, because of our terrain, the whole place was taken over by flood. And some people are now describing it as a seaport. And then the immediate past governor came in and then relocated it to where Alame Seya initially had proposed. You know, so, and at the end of the day, he started the construction and completed the airport. And the rest was history until we came in. Ours was to ensure that we made it functional, and we are happy we did that.
Is that to say that there'll be no more work done on the airport?
So much work still to be done. I'm not saying, okay. When I say completed, it means that you landed at the airport. There's still so much work to be done. So much. There is no, I mean, for now, we are landing in the airport, but we still have a lot of work to be done.
Well, it needs to bring in, one moment, it needs to bring in investment. You know,
investment,
the major justification
looking at it from the point of investment,
yes.
Truly, I mean, you can't compare. Now, I have some meetings with some scheduled investors, and the first question is, can we fly to your airport? So you can imagine that. And I said, yes. You have an airport? We can fly in there? Yes. Okay, we are coming.
Because I was going to follow up with that.
That's the difference.
Yeah, because that has to do with employment, unemployment. Because looking at the figures in Bayelsa, not exactly encouraging. So 2 years into your time, do you have any targets for that particular area? What is it and what do you want to achieve?
For now, you see, we are even looking at, now that we have started operations, we're even looking at some kind of partnering with the private sector. Because the number of persons I saw there being employed when I got in there, already people were employed. And for me, that's a no. Because we need to fix our figures with what we can offer at that airport. That airport should not be seen as a place where you want to use it to maybe satisfy some people here and there. For me, the number of people employed there is even too high. The number is too high. So I'm looking at getting some professionals who will bring up a blueprint in terms of operating that airport, either with some private concerns, or if government is to operate, then professionals who understands the aviation industry.
One other thing that still talking about this airport thing, what are the prospects? I know you talked about a list of interview or rather discussions you need to have with some people. There are those who will be interested in, okay, so what does Bielsa represent and how does this airport help me to achieve that in the state? So if you would, for instance, market Bielsa state to any foreign investor who would want to come, what is the high point?
I see what you are saying. You know, we have an investment promotion agency in Bielsa, and part of our selling point now is the airport. And you know, in Bielsa, we are the leading producers of gas. Oil is there, quite all right. Bielsa was the first state where oil was struck in commercial quantities at Loibri. And moving on, now the world is moving towards cleaner energy. And of course, as a stopgap, you have gas. And Bielsa is richer in gas than any other state. In fact, Bielsa feeds the liquefied natural gas at Bonny with about 60%. You know, so moving forward, the airports will be a basis for those who are interested in the business of gas. And Bielsa is also an agrarian state. The environment of Bielsa is such that fish farming is number one. Rice farming is number one. Cassava, plantain, to mention but a few. You know, so our emphasis in this government is actually more of pushing our people towards farming.
Are they accepting it?
Oh, sure, they are. In fact, for the first time, last year, we had made in Bielsa rice. The government pioneered that effort, and they produced 600 bags of rice made in Bielsa, and they called it Bielsa rice. Is
this with the private sector or joint partnership, private and government?
That was purely a government effort. Now, we were trying to take that lead to let the private sector know. And today, the private sector is keen in. Private sector is keen in. So very soon, you don't be surprised when Bielsa becomes the highest producer of rice. Because of our terrain, we are told that rice can actually grow thrice in a year here in Bielsa. Wow. So Bielsa is actually a land of opportunities.
So hitherto, rice had not been grown here. It was
not.
There was. It's not one of the staple foods.
No, there was. There was the Peremabri rice farm by the federal government. It was abandoned. I was under the NPN government. It was abandoned.
Was there a reason for that?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to go into that. All I want is to ensure that our people are now interested in agriculture.
You know what?
I asked that because, I mean, what we don't want is to repeat history. We had this similar conversation with the governor of Ondo State, who said, yes, the grazing farms and all of those were abandoned for whatever reason back then. So you don't also want to come back in, say, 5 years, 10 years after your tenure and find out that the same thing that you resuscitated have all gone under. So if we could identify, okay, this is why it happened then, and we're not going to ensure that it does not happen again by doing this.
No, when I say I don't know, I mean from the federal government point of view as to why it was abandoned. But what I know is that the interest of the people was not carried along. And now what we are doing in the state is to actually get the private interest into it. What we have done is more like a demonstration farming. And then let the people own it. So if everybody goes into agriculture, goes into rice farming, goes into fish farming, goes into cassava farming. By the way, the previous government established a cassava starch production industry. And we are going to also ensure that it becomes functional, but it's not yet functional. And we are working around the clock to ensure it is functional. So you can actually get starch, to import starch from Bielsa here. You know. So what I think we are doing as a government now is to get the buy-in of the private sector
and that's what I was
of our
wondering,
individuals.
because people who are used to an oil economy, it takes a lot to get them to get into agriculture, where there has to be a lot of patience, no quick gratification. That's what I was asked. How do you get, what kind of success are you recording in that area?
You are right in that. You are right in that, because most times we begin to ask, is the discovery of oil in our land, is it a blessing or a curse? You know, because it has changed the mindset of the young ones. Because people can sit back at home and then make money from oil and all that and all that. So it's actually a problem, but it has to do with the education, enlightenment, and they themselves seeing others prospering in the agri-business that we are going into. And that's why last year we were in Greece. We had an MOU with a consortium of European companies for fish farming in Bielsa. And this year everything will be perfected, and that will go on. So when the youth will begin to see people making money, other youths making money from fish farming, from rice farming, from cassava farming, I'm sure that their interest will now come up.
Well, I know that, I asked that question about rice because, a lot of other staples that are eaten here are grown locally, plantain, cassava, and all those kind of things. But rice, it would seem there was a rather novel product here in Bielsa.
Now, let me take you on that. Before now, rice was in Bielsa here. It was eaten once in a year. It was seen as a food for the rich, So today, the story is different. Rice is like a daily thing in everybody's table.
Now, how long ago was that? I mean, when rice was eaten once a year? That must have been when you were a child, I imagine. I imagine that was how long ago it was, because in almost every Nigerian home or street corner, rice is sold as an everyday food. Isn't that correct?
Well, I don't know of other parts of Nigeria, but here in Bielsa, and I know that it may be true of several other parts of Nigeria, that rice was not a common food. Rice was eaten once in Christmas, maybe for some average homes, maybe every Sunday.
Okay.
Every Sunday.
True. But so what have you done now for the people to see that this could actually be a lucrative venture? Or perhaps we need to go and
we'll talk about that.
No, initially, when we talked about the made in Bielsa rice, a lot of people didn't believe until they saw the rice bags that were boldly written made in Bielsa.
Okay. We'll let you talk about that a little more when we come back in just a moment. Stay with us. With His Excellency Diri, Governor of Bielsa State, you were going to conclude your thought about the rice project and how that is coming on.
Oh yeah, so like I said, agriculture is priority for this government, and we are working hard to have a change of mindset of our youths to key into agriculture. And as a result of that, even in our 2 years anniversary program, tomorrow the governor of Akwa Ibom is coming to Bielsa to flag off the farming season here in Bielsa State. And he will also superintend over the Made in Bielsa Agricultural Show that will be held here in Yenagwa in the Peace Park. And so agriculture is a priority, and I once again call on all Bielsans that oil is almost going, and we cannot continue to live with oil.
What is the focus
now
of this?
The focus of this government is agriculture, and let us all key in to agriculture.
But so it cannot be subsistence agriculture, the way it's always been done. And then we cannot just rely on just the products from the farm. We have to also be looking at value addition. So agriculture, but also agribusiness. What's the value chain you're proposing in that line of agriculture?
I agree with your thoughts, and that's what we are into. But that's not to also wish away the subsistence bit of it. There are some clients you go to that almost every other worker has a farm behind him or her. So that's still subsistence. He's a worker, he's earning salaries, but he still has a farm to support the salaries. But away from that, what we are encouraging is actually commercial agriculture. Take, for instance, the cassava starch industry that we're talking about, or the AAGS agreement that we have had for the fishing, which has to do with fishing trawlers, manufacturing of those trawlers. So it's a chain that has to do with employment of our youths in terms of both manufacturing, in terms of fishing trawlers, and in terms of fishing itself, and the sale of the fish. So we are actually talking about commercial agriculture.
So the entire value chain then?
The whole value chain, okay. The whole value chain.
With the focus on agriculture, what's the employment value that you're looking at? What number of youths are you hoping that this value chain will take off the unemployment market?
With AAGS alone, on our fish farming, if that comes on stream, we are looking at over 4,000 youths being sucked into that project.
Okay.
And with the starch factory, if that comes on stream too, in no distant time, we're also looking at over 1,000 youths sucked into it.
What's the unemployment gap that you're hoping to fill within the shortest possible time?
For now, we are still looking at the figures. We are not too certain about it now. But plus minus, it is going to take over 60 to 70% of our youths.
You also talked about, I don't know if that's where Chairman.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm just looking through this annual, they call it annual state viability index. So they did rank different states. It was conducted by Economic Confidential. And the report indicated the Bayelsa State.
Sector?
Yeah. Bayelsa State got 152.64 billion as federal allocation in 2020, but could only generate 12.18 billion as IGR, representing 8.0% of its total receipts from the Federation account. What this simply means is that Bayelsa State, with its oil production advantage, is invisible. It cannot survive without federal allocation.
Now, the question you ask yourself is that fair? Is that just? That what is generated here as income comes back to Bayelsa State as federal allocation, and maybe truly a paltry federal allocation. And those are the issues that we have been talking about. That you cannot have the whole chunk of money generated from our land here and taken to the federal and shared to states, and in the end, you now say Bayelsa State is insolvent. And that's why we are talking about restructuring. That's why we are talking about our country's constitution to be amended. A constitution that says the land, surface rights belong to the people, and what is under that land belongs to federal government. There is no justice in it. And anybody who bandies these figures, you are annoying the people of Bayelsa State, and indeed the people of the Niger Delta. So for us, we need to rework our constitution. We need to restructure our country in a way that we can approximate our own resources here and pay tax to the federal government. And nobody will be talking about Bayelsa State being insolvent, or any other state in the Niger Delta for that matter. It's because of the unitary system of government in the name of a federal government that we have today in Nigeria, that the resources of this state are expropriated. And somebody will sit down and come with figures to say a state like Bayelsa is insolvent. And like I said the last time, if Bayelsa State is insolvent, it means Nigeria is insolvent. From where you get all your resources, and the resources are not plowed back here, they are expropriated, and you say the state is insolvent.
So are you optimistic that the ongoing alteration of the Constitution will factor in some of these concerns?
It's not going to be possible. Because I've been part of it. You know, I was a lawmaker. It's certainly not going to be possible.
So why do they carry them out if they won't achieve what the people want? And now I heard that they budgeted, what, 1 billion naira for that exercise?
Well, I don't want to go into that.
But why do you think
I don't want to go into that. But you see, my point here is that there is so much wrong with our country. And that's why we are moving in a circle of underdevelopment, a circle of continuous injustice, a circle of inequities, and a circle of almost being a failed state.
How popular is this position, Your Excellency, among governors who you sit with in the National Economic Council and the Nigerian Governors Forum?
You see, I don't care the popularity of it. I don't care. What is right is right. What is wrong is wrong. If you give me surface rights, you yourself reason about it. You say this is my land, and you say everything on the surface belongs to me. And then everything underneath, the land where I built my house, the land where I do everything, you say that now belongs to federal government. And you see, a lot of people make this mistake that, oh, we used cocoa money to develop oil. We used XY money to develop oil. That's not true. That's not true. Multinational, international oil companies came with the capital in oil exploration and exploitation. There was no money from Nigeria. Every money that came were monies that came from the world to come and develop the oil here. And these are the issues that Nigeria needs to resolve. And beyond even what I've just said, even in our politics. In our politics today, we are talking about rotational presidency, we are talking about this, we are talking about, and we all know the reality, we all know the truth. And except we come on a round table, not the National Assembly that I belonged to. Because the moment you do that, people will take ethnic and religious considerations and will never look at the truth of what you are doing.
So what will this round table be like?
Well, this round table will be like, I know under Jonathan there was this constitutional conference. Yeah. Something of that nature. Why can't we have that report? And why can't that report, like we are trying to do in the 7th Assembly, bring that report as a National Assembly, let us critique that report. And let us see the areas that we can take from that report and maybe pass into law. But that didn't see the light of the day.
The reason I asked the question earlier, Your Excellency, is because, I mean, there is a National Economic Council. State governors are there and all. So if it is for, even if it's just for economic considerations, why can't we all sit down in that meeting and say, look, if we don't do this, we are just paying lip service to whatever economic considerations or policies we make in this meeting?
We have said it over and over, and if you remember, that was what led to the militancy in the Niger Delta. When the youth started having their own way of responding to this injustice, that was what led to the militancy in the Niger Delta. And to cast your minds back, that was what led to the first revolution by Adakaburu against the federal government. And these things, that's why I say it's a circle. Saying it in the National Economic Council means nothing. Because when you say it, there are those who feel, who are benefiting from the injustice. There are those who are benefiting and feeding very fast from it. And surprisingly, well, some of them are in authorities. So what do you do?
Let me talk about
the truth is that we have to face our realities as a nation state.
The road infrastructure. Help us understand this, because I mean we read that you were talking about why you took up the 3 senatorial roads because of the economic benefits, but then they also see the Nembe Brass Road, which is equally needs a lot of attention, and that hasn't happened. What's going on in that?
Yeah, thank you very much. We are looking at the infrastructural development, particularly road infrastructure in our state. And we have 3 senatorial districts. We have 3 major senatorial roads. And out of these, we are on with 2, like you rightly mentioned. If you have time, you can drive to the Sabama-Ekeremo Road, which has to do with the Western Senatorial District. We inherited it, again, from previous government, and it was actually a federal government road. It was the NDDC that started that road, and work was abandoned. So when the former governor took office, that is his own senatorial district, so he decided to take over the road from NDDC. And he did quite some work there, but not completed. So as we came, we're also continuing with that road. Well, it's a major road to link up the Western Senatorial District. Now the next one is the Central Senatorial Road. And in the Central Senatorial Road, we have one of our major oil-producing local governments, Southern Niger local government, which in several other states in this country, Southern Niger alone should have been like 4 to 5 local governments. But it is all one local government, and majorly riverine. The headquarters of that local government, Oporoma, is not accessible by road up until this moment that we are speaking. And so what we are doing now is to take that road to Angiama, and the Vice President will be invited to come and flag off the construction of a bridge across to the headquarters of the local government, Oporoma. So during this anniversary, the Vice President will be here to flag off the construction of that bridge. And that's about the Central Senatorial Road. Then the other one you pointed out is the Brass Nimbe Road. Again, all of these roads I'm talking about were federal government roads. The Nimbe Brass Road is also a federal government road. It was even awarded and no work was done. I think under former Governor Timi Silva, he tried to also take over the road from the federal government, but again, it was abandoned. And so as we came in, I've written letters to the federal government and to Nigerian Ajib Oil Company, which is the dominant international oil company in Brass, to see how we can actually partner to construct that road to Brass. From last year, I had responses from the Federal Minister of Works, from the Honorable Minister, indicating his interest, particularly with this federal government new road tax relief road infrastructure. But unfortunately, the Ajib Oil Company's response was not positive. But what I have decided is that this year, I will again take over that road from the federal government and then start construction of that road.
So I'm just wondering, I mean, I don't know what the grand plan is for roads. I appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of people can appreciate.
No, so what we want to do is that we want, Bayelsa to be opened up, that all our 3 senatorial districts, every local government headquarters should be accessible by road.
Okay.
Brass, again, is the headquarters of the Brass local government area, Tuon Brass. It's by the Atlantic Ocean, and it's not accessible by road. So
these are going to be, heavy projects, because when you're trying to link communities that are largely riverine by road, that's certainly going to consume a lot of, yes, that's going to be capital intensive.
Quite right.
And hopefully, I'm hoping that they'll be able to yield the returns over the years. But some people will ask, why are we not maximizing what nature has already given, which is water? Perhaps a development, something I know Lagos State, for instance, is exploring. They've since found out that their roads are congested, and they're exploring the waterways as another means of transport. Would it have been more expensive to go through that route, or do you think that roads is the best one, whichever way?
Well, the truth is that, yes, already that's what our people are using now. For now, is the waterways that have access to Brass, to Southern Niger, and even to Ikeremo, you know. So that's already existing. That's already existing. So it's not a question of exploring it.
Yeah, but developing it to make
yeah,
it
that
more.
we can develop it further, but that's not to say that we cannot construct roads. That's the feeling that Nigeria had against the riverine area, and that led to the underdevelopment of the riverine areas. Over the period, everybody felt, governments felt that this terrain is too difficult, it cannot be developed.
That's one of the reasons.
You know, so for us,
yes.
The terrain is not too difficult. The terrain is there. God has also put certain things in the soil and the land of that terrain. Take, for instance, sand. You can get sand all over. And the basic fundamental ingredient for road construction here is sand.
Indeed. And I was just remarking to my colleague yesterday how I really wanted to pack the sand in a truck and take it with me to Abuja, because the sand in the Bayelsa is really beautiful to behold. It's very smooth, and it's
and that's
really,
why we are looking at,
lovely.
you know, even glass industries. We have been, you know, selling that point also,
yes.
because of that natural resource that we have in sand.
Yes.
It will be easy to site and locate a factory that can produce glass, produce...
Why don't you build it? Why are you not thinking of building one, for instance?
Everything is not government.
No, I'm asking this because if you have a big problem of unemployment on your hands, and people are looking for jobs, and people are looking for... This morning we had a chat around and it was from the House of Reps, the menace of ritual killings, and the belief around instantaneous wealth, etc., etc. Some governments are thinking that perhaps, people have always argued that government has no business in business. The job of government is to provide an enabling environment, and that is a belief. And some were saying, no, we cannot sit idly by right now. We are in a state of emergency with regards to unemployment. We have to build these industries ourselves, and they're beginning to do that as well. I do not know where you stand in that thinking. What's your own theory?
Well, I agree that the first function of government is to provide an enabling environment. Provide a safe, secured environment for businesses to thrive. But beyond that, we cannot also totally wish government away from businesses too. I think it also has to do with the people, because when people treat government properties as if they are not their properties, the way you protect your own private business, if you are now in charge of a government business, you treat it as if it's something that you have come to make just money out of. And that's where the problem is. And that's why a lot of people believe that government should not be involved in businesses, allow the private sector to come in. But if our mindset is good, there is nothing that stops government from coming into business.
How are you judging the mindset of your people?
The truth is that even here in my state, there are certain people you give responsibilities to, and the outcome, you begin to wonder if this person is truly a Bayelsan. I say, can you treat your own private business this way? That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
So I'm just asking then, are you then thinking that the attitude in your state is not right for us to build industries as a government?
No, not all. I'm not saying generally about my state. I say some.
Yes, but I do.
Some, yeah.
So are you thinking of building industries then?
Well, for me, our focus is more on PPP, public-private partnership. Okay. Our focus is more on PPP. Government will be involved, and then the private sector will be involved. That way, I think that the issue of treating government companies as though they are not my own will also be removed, because the private sector will make their profit, government will make its own profit.
How are you working on addressing, because when people want to do business with government, they're usually wary, especially if it's PPP, that government could renege on their promise anytime?
No, because that's why these days, it is put down in black and white. It is signed, agreements are signed, and if you do renege, of course, the law courts are there. So, like for instance, the cassava factory we're talking about, we're going to operate it on PPP basis.
But let me go back to the issue of infrastructure, and this is about prioritizing. I understand why it is important to open up the roads, because you have talked about underdevelopment that the coastal communities have suffered for a very long time, and one can appreciate that. However, if you were to open up via the rivers, I mean, between France and the UK, for instance, you could travel with your car on a barge. Over the channel and then get to France or Paris, as the case might be. If you're thinking about development, when you're thinking about prioritizing where your capital should go, should it really be around businesses as opposed to, say, you're just opening up the area for, okay, well, this is opened up now for private capital to be able to come in? Would they really find it attractive enough to go in?
Oh, sure. You see, okay, let's take Holland, for instance. Holland's terrain is almost like Bielsa.
Indeed.
And you see bridges and roads constructed all over. So opening up Bielsa is like attracting foreigners into it also, and investors.
But there is no way you will go to Holland and never have gone on the boat. I mean, it's a part of the economy.
What we are saying is not totally to exclude the boat bit of it. We will indeed develop that bit of it better than what we are using today. But what we are saying is that for easy access to our communities, and then for some kind of governance, even in terms of security. There are a lot of those communities that are far-flung, and for us to access security-wise becomes a problem. Becomes a problem. But if we open up, for instance, to a place like Tuambras, if we open up to a place like Oporoma, it will be easier for us to move in equipment and facilities to govern that space, those spaces.
All right, just one more break. We'll be back and then continue. And then talk about some national issues as well. Don't go away. Sunrise, Your Excellency, you're making a point about why you're insisting on the road infrastructure.
Yes, why the priority on road is because our terrain is a very difficult terrain. And the cost of construction of even buildings is very high. Assuming you are to move your building materials from Yenagoa, for instance, to Tuambras by boat, the construction cost is like twice higher than what, or thrice higher than what you do in Abuja. So the benefits therefrom cannot be overemphasized. That you have a road and that trucks will now pick up your construction materials to your site. The benefits are enormous. And so for us, we have the dual benefit of having the maritime domain and also the roads. So the roads are truly a priority, not only for easy access, but also in terms of construction costs of buildings and whatever you construct within our environment. And that's why the construction cost of a road here in Yenagoa and in any part in Bielsa cannot be compared to what you do in Lagos, what you do in Abuja.
One of the things that, and I think we talked about this, you have repeated this a little more frequently, mindset. You know, a good number of people will always reference the fact that people don't take ownership. That's why they vandalize, you know, and stuff like that. And you've talked about mindset over and over again here. So it raises the question of how well or not people take ownership of government projects for sustainability. Because beyond your government, of course, you want to see that those infrastructure are still, you know, subsistent, you know, on and on like that. So in terms of educating the people, of communicating with the people, the ideals, the position, the vision of government for the state, what's the process?
You know, mindset is not something that you can do just over a day. It has to be a continuous process, and for the people to also appreciate and key in to your position. And so for me, it's a very long process, but all the same, once the people begin to see why you are preaching this. Take, for instance, we are talking about love, we are talking about light. And there is no way any human being, no matter how your mindset is, when you see the light, you see the difference from darkness. And so when we keep doing these things, changing, and they are seeing the changes, certainly they will equally change. But it is not something that you want to force somebody to change his mindset overnight. Which leads me to education. Yeah.
There is, of course, the general belief that if people had education, they would do better. Yeah. Civic education was one of those things that was taught when you were in the primary school and all those things. So I'm wondering, is there a role for education in changing that mindset, the philosophy of government, education, curriculum and things like that for long-term development?
Thank you. For me, it is also again here, education, education, education. In fact, as part of our activities in this second anniversary, for the first time we held a Bayelsa State Education Summit. And it was declared open, and the keynote address was presented by the former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. And in that summit, we are looking at a rolling plan of education for the state. In fact, a 15-year education plan that will be all encompassing, including the curriculum and all of it that will actually generate the kind of benefit we expect, the kind of areas that we expect to address, particularly in terms of technical and vocational education. We have come to see in this country that our education is tailored more towards white-collar jobs, and the white-collar jobs are no longer there. So there has to be a shift in paradigm, and that's why we decided to hold the Education Summit. And it's still on. It's a 5-day summit. And at the end of the day, we want to have the outcome and set up a committee for the implementation of that summit. So
when you talked about the technical education, there definitely is a focus. Is it targeted towards what Bayelsa is? You've been talking about agriculture. Is that what we're looking at here?
You are very correct. In fact, part of our priority in this administration is that we are going to set up 8 new technical colleges, science and technical colleges, and all of them will be fully equipped, and which means that each local government area will have a technical and science college sited, fully equipped. So we're actually moving away from education that provides white-collar jobs to education that provides jobs, that education that will make the educated to provide employment and not seeking for employment.
I see some people asking, what are you doing about recreation? Because they think that there's an abandoned, I think they call it Peace Park. Are you doing anything in that area?
Peace Park is just opposite Government House here. It's not abandoned. I don't think that that's the only area for recreation. When you talk about recreation and tourism, Bayelsa is outstanding. We have a lot of sand beaches. And annually, if you come to Bayelsa during the Christmas, you will see almost every local government area, almost every community is holding one beach party or the other.
But you have a market
in fact, Bayelsa is a tourist attraction.
No, Your Excellency.
It's a tourist, and we are coming. We are just about 2 years now. We have what we call the Oxbow Lake. And I'm sure I will direct my Chief Press Secretary to take you there. And you will see the potentials. And that's what I always talk about, the PPP. Because all of these cannot always be addressed by government scarce resources. So we are actually looking out for investors to come and tap the abundant natural potentials in this state, in terms of tourism, in terms of recreation.
But for you to have tourism, security must, be top-notch. I recalled, thankfully, your commissioner who was kidnapped was, brought back safe and sound. Thank God. But what immediately comes to mind is that if a commissioner can be kidnapped, it means, who am I? Who cannot be picked up? So how do you begin to, say it is okay, we're opening up, we have an airport now, we'd like you to invest, we're looking at PPPs, and it is safe. How do you...
Can you look at security in relative terms in this country? I believe that you come into the conclusion with me that Bayelsa is one of the safest states in this country. And I'm sure since you came in yesterday, you would have seen the ambience in the state. You would have seen the peace in the state. And because of that, we are trying to rejig the state security outfit that we inherited from the immediate past government. And just recently, I launched over about 40 new brand Hiluxes and motorcycles to ensure that our security system is okay. And not only that, they are all fully equipped with all facilities and equipments. And I can tell you, Mokwe, that the insecurity in this state is one of the least. There is nowhere you will have perfect security. So I believe that Bayelsa is very secured, and I believe that Bayelsa is prepared for investors. Occasionally, you'll have pockets of those type of creation. That's what I come back again to mindset. Because oil has made our youths to think that you can just stay at home and make money, or you can create one problem and then use that problem to make money. So when we are addressing most of those issues, and as we keep addressing them, you will discover that Bayelsa is so safe. Bayelsa is so peaceful. I am sure you slept very well like a baby last night, not afraid of any kidnap. All of that will become a thing of the past. Anywhere you go around this state capital in particular, you'll be seeing state security outfit all over. And very prompt. If there is any issue, call them under 5 minutes, they are there.
Is this
Operation Doakbo?
Doakbo. I was just about to say that I remember that I think that was the name of the operation from the last administration.
We didn't change the name. We are still using the same name.
Okay.
So what statement do you
And the Doakbo means peace. It means peace.
Operation Peace.
Operation Peace. So for me, there can be nothing better than having a peaceful operation.
What statement do you hope, Your Excellency, to make with this 2-year anniversary celebration?
Well, the statement we hope to make is that, one, we need to bring our people together, to be one, to be united, not minding political parties. We are one and the same people before APC, before PDP. And let us not rock our state. Let us not rock the boat. Time for politics will come. Let us be civilians, not military people. And we also like to make statements that Bayelsa is safe and is opened up for business. We like to make that statement not only to Bayelsans, but to Nigerians and indeed to the world, that Bayelsa is open for investors, is open for business. And the government of the day is doing its best to put infrastructure on ground for that.
If I could just follow up on that, that's why they ask about the foreign direct investments.
FDI.
What particular program do you have to attract such in the States?
For FDIs, what we have done is that before now, Bayelsa, in terms of certain parameters, we were lacking behind. But as we speak, even in terms of World Bank loans, we are now up to date with sifters, with a lot more other things that people will say, okay, operations of government were opaque. But all of that is now in the past. So we are ready to attract FDI from any bit of it, because the parameters that were laid down for all the states, we are part of those who have fulfilled those parameters.
You know, as much as you're trying to do a lot in agriculture to ensure that people have that mind, paradigm shift, if you will, from oil to agri. But illegal refinery has been a huge challenge. I know you had some complaints about that. How are you succeeding in ensuring that you address that?
But I think that, like I keep saying, in relative terms, we cannot say that it's totally off in Bayelsa, but you cannot experience black suit in Yenagoa, the state capital.
Do we have to wait until we establish you? Are you
stamping
them out of
I'm coming. What we are saying here is that because of the proactive nature of government, that's why you are not experiencing it here. And right now, what the government is doing is now to go into the hinterland, where we still have pockets of bunkering. You know, before now, most of these militants, that's why you have the amnesty. Most of these people who are involved in bunkering were the people who gave up and then embraced amnesty. But some new ones have come up, and those ones are beginning to have these illegal oil refineries. And like I keep saying, it is not just something that is illegal. It is something that affects our future, something that affects our environment. Illegal refineries are adding to what the multinational oil companies are doing against the environment of this state. So for me, it is a no, no, no. We cannot afford to have illegal refineries, because the level of pollution of our environment is unspeakable. Our waters, our air, unclean air, and that has led to strange diseases. And so for me, it's a no, no, no. And as a government, we have continued not only to preach it, but we are also being very proactive to ensure that wherever we find an illegal refinery, it is totally closed down.
About pollution, I know everybody saw that oil spill in Nembe. What is the current situation now?
Well, the current situation is that there is a disagreement between the federal government agencies, NOSRA, the operator, ITO, and on the other hand, the state government and the communities and the local government. NOSRA and other agencies of the federal government are saying that the pollution is occasioned by man. The state government, the communities, and the local government are saying that that is not true, that that pollution was occasioned by equipment failure. And so that disagreement has been established. And for us, we want to be very legitimate and legal. We want to use legitimate and legal ways of approaching and achieving our aim. And so the next option for us is actually to go to the courts to ensure that what we have seen and what we know will be decided by the courts. Because we believe that there was nothing that would have made anybody to go to an oil well which was first of all not decommissioned and declared as not producing. And yet you add that volume of oil spill that polluted the whole of our environment, that has made our people lose their sources of livelihood. And you say compensation will not be paid.
Tell us, okay, so the cause ultimately affects whether or not compensation is paid. So if it is man-made, compensation will not be paid?
That is what I was told that the Nigerian laws are. Mokwe, thank you for that question.
But which law could they be relying on?
Yeah?
Which law are they relying on? The PIA or which one now?
Well, whichever one they are relying on, as far as we are concerned, the pollution has occurred, and even with our Nigerian laws, where there is pollution, the environment is affected, something has to be done.
Indeed. So that's why I'm wondering why there is a, but I mean, while we wait for, because you say, are you already headed to the court, or are you in court already?
No, these are not matters that you just immediately rush to the court. You have to have your facts. You have to gather everything, and you are able to convince yourself that you are set for it. So as we speak, everything is almost set. And as soon as it is set, the legal battle will now continue.
Tell us about gas flaring. I mean, you've talked about how Bayelsa is richer in gas than perhaps even oil, and you're supplying the NLNG at least 60% of the gas. And we understand that Nigeria has an mission to, extinguish all gas flaring by, I'm not sure what the deadline is, 2025 or so. But they say that they're already 80% done. I don't know, has Bayelsa experienced the quenching of gas flares in its state?
Well, to a large extent, yes. It wasn't like before again, where every nook and cranny in Bayelsa that you turn to, you'll be seeing gas flares. But now, I like to agree that it has been reduced, but not completely stopped. If you just move a little bit away from government house here now, you will see a gas flare. Very close here. And when there is a gas flare here, it affects the whole of this environment. The whole of the environment. So it's not just the community where the gas is being flared. So we are not totally out of it. We still have a lot of gas flares in Bayelsa. We are believing that the federal government is also very serious, because all the multinational oil companies too have been trying to see how they can stop gas flaring. But again, that brings me to the issue of royalties. Gas is flared here in Bayelsa. Who collects the royalties? Federal government. All the pains of environmental pollution occasioned by gas flaring, and the houses of the people, the zinc houses, can no longer stay because of the gas flaring. You have to paint your house every year because of gas flaring. But who collects the royalties? Royalties are paid to the federal government. And these are the disarticulations in our system.
If it is paid to the state, will the state paint the houses?
No. What we want is not just to the state. What we want is that royalties for gas flaring should never ever be collected by the federal government. Royalties for gas flaring should be to the communities. I'm not even talking about the state.
Did you make that point when the PIA? You saw the big
not only the PIA, where I raised these matters on the floor of the National Assembly. I was a member of the Constitutional Amendment Committee in the 8th Assembly. And as usual, we will be voted out by majority votes. In fact, we pushed the amendment of the Land Use Act and pushed it through at the committee level, a joint committee of the Senate and the House of Reps. We pushed it through. But on the floor, we were voted out.
Oh, well. So I do not know how your party is going to do. Because right now, we're already pre-elections now. 2023 is right at the corner, and there seems to be a lot of... are you interested in national politics anymore? You're just facing your state right now and seeing what you can do. We see a number of your other brother governors already going around, especially from your party, trying to see how they can ginger and get the machinery of the PDP going again. Are you a part of that movement, or you're just saying, no, I'm still relatively new, I'm trying to get things on the ground first before I see what's happening at the national level? What's your stance?
You can't extricate yourself from the national politics as a governor of a state. We're all units that form the whole of Nigeria, so you can't extricate yourself. Much as we are trying to get our state functional and get the development indices right in our state, we cannot also look the other way about the national politics. We are part of it, and our prayer is that the dangerous path our country is treading, let us not finally become a failed state. And so we are all working towards getting our country back to the basics, and let's have a country that we'll be proud of. Before, you know, when you are singing the national anthem, you sing it with pride, with happiness, with joy. You know, but today it's different.
Your Excellency, what questions
So
would you...
I'm part of it. To answer your question more directly, I'm part of it. I'm not saying I will not be. Being a governor here, that gives me more to be part of the national politics.
In the leadership recruitment process, what questions would you suggest or advise Nigerians to ask of the various levels of leaders that they're going to be recruiting for the jobs come 2023?
Well, I don't know if we actually have leadership recruitment institutions or schools that over the years that you would have said, okay, from so place, like we have in some other climes, that people who go through so schools, so institutions will become good leaders.
But as you said, what we have is what we have. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
in the space, what are the things that people should look out for that maybe we haven't looked out for until now?
No, but you see, our problem for me, to my mind, is that it's been one of, we look out for strong people rather than strong institutions. Take, for instance, the previous election. Everybody felt that 2015, if the sitting president today was voted in, then the issue of Boko Haram would have been addressed under 1 day or 1 month. That was one selling point for the bringing in of our president today. Because, one, everybody believed he was a strong man. Everybody believed, as a retired general, that the insecurity will be fixed under 1 hour and one day. Well, your guess is as good as mine. We are in the 7th year, I guess, of that administration. And so, for me, it is not a question of looking out for strong people. Let us have strong institutions. Let us have leaders with the mindset of service to the people, and not people who will come and coerce others to submission.
All right, then, Your Excellency, Diri, Governor of Bayelsa State, thank you very much indeed for your time, and congratulations on your 2nd anniversary.
Thank you, my dear friend Chamberlain.
Well, there you go. Sunrise Today came to you live from Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, where the 2nd anniversary of this administration is being celebrated. Well, thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, they do have a number of activities lined up, and we'll be beaming live from here for some time of the day, so do stay tuned. Thank you for watching. I'm Malcolm Yusuf.
And don't forget, you may as well go check out the menu for the fisherman's soup. Amayo Makinde, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Is that what you did just